Welcome back to Garden Talk, brought to you by the Penn State Erie County Extension Master Gardeners. I'm your co-host again for today, Mike Bailey, along with Ellen de Placido. Good morning, Ellen.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing?
Good, good. And what are we going to talk about
Good.
today?
Well, we want to talk a little bit today about some of these early season pests and diseases that can get into our garden. And we want to remind folks that problems can occur at all stages of growth. So we're going to talk about a few of those early season problems. And believe it or not, planting seeds can present some problems because those seeds can rot in the soil if conditions change and they're not good, such as exceptionally cold weather or we get a lot of rain and the soil gets very wet, those seeds are going to rot. And some of those seeds, or maybe even a lot of them, can be consumed by all those different soil dwelling organisms that we want in the soil, but may go after our seeds, such as insects to worms to nematodes, larvae of beetles, some bugs, moths, anything that's in that soil could potentially um, make a meal of our seeds. So once you plant the seeds, doesn't mean that it's always going to be successful. You might have to reseed.
You're right. There's plenty of hungry little creatures down underneath that soil
Yeah,
line, aren't there?
yeah.
And once
Mhm.
those seeds start to grow into nice, healthy seedlings, okay, there's other little creatures that come by and say, "Look, I'm looking for a meal." Also, when you talk about rabbits and deer and woodchucks, okay, we all have
Mhm.
seen those problems. And in the end, probably your best bet is some fencing when it comes to those types of things. Voles and chipmunks can also be problems, and unfortunately, traps are probably about the only good solution. And when it comes
Mhm.
to voles, voles are funny about taking bait. But one of the things that we've stumbled across with my neighbor here is that we take some peanut butter and put it into those traps, and then we coat that peanut butter with dried oatmeal, and those
Mhm.
those voles can't seem to resist the oatmeal. The peanut butter is just used as a device to attach it,
Okay.
but they love the oatmeal. And chipmunks, they'll go after the peanut butter. Or pieces of apple, etc., and stuff like that. So
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
you got to be careful, especially about the chipmunks. I know people think they're awful cute, but boy, they can cause a tremendous amount of damage,
That's
not only
right.
in your garden but around your home. So please
Mhm.
be careful. Now, what
Mhm.
about some of the other insect type creatures? Okay, one of the things that I've come across on a regular basis. Okay, that early in the season are what they call cutworms. They're really the larva of a cutworm moth, and these are little creatures about an inch and a quarter long that overwinter in the garden soil. The larva overwinter, as the pupae does too, but they will, of course, hatch and go back into a moth, go into the
Mhm.
adult again. But the larvae that overwinter, okay, will become activated in the spring, and they will burrow up to the top of that soil, and they'll wrap themselves around the base of those young plants, and they actually chew them off at the soil line, and
Mhm.
they'll then consume that whole plant right there and then, or they'll pull it back underground through their little burrow. In fact, if you're missing plants, okay, find that little nubbin of a plant that was there and dig around the base of that plant. And you may very well come up with this, not so nice looking little creature, okay, at the base of that plant that's, about an inch long, dark colored, and rather plump after it's consumed your plants. So, how do you protect your young plants from these cutworms? Um, One of the easiest ways of doing it is putting what they call little collars around the base of the plants. And you take a little piece of cardboard, okay, maybe 3 inch square, and you cut a line into the center of it and kind of open up the center of it a little bit, so a spot where the stem can be, if you will. And you take that piece of cardboard and you set it around the base of the plant. You can also do the same thing with newspapers, but you got to use 5, 6 layers of
A
newspaper,
lot of it.
yeah, to
Right.
do that.
Yeah.
But that
Mhm.
works, okay, if that's what you got
Mhm.
handy. There are other things that you can place around the base of the plants to kind of discourage those cutworms. Okay, cutworms don't like to crawl across sharp edged little things. And sometimes crushed up eggshells are what they call diatomaceous earth, which is really the crushed up crustaceans that were growing in the ocean. Things like BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, also work, but you have to, they have to consume that. Those cutworms have to consume that, and the only way they're going to consume it is by eating your plant. I would just assume use the crushed eggshells or the diatomaceous earth or the collars around them to keep them from consuming the plants to begin with.
Okay.
So, what else do we have early on in the season, Ellen?
Well, we also have flea beetles, okay? And flea beetles, the adults, overwinter in plant material and debris that might be left in your garden from the previous season. But for the most part, flea beetles are an early season problem because they like plants with the smaller leaves. They don't like the older leaves. And they're very small, these flea beetles. They're probably 1/16 of an inch or a little bit larger. They're dark colored and they hop. That's why they're called flea beetles. And they eat very small holes in the leaves of plants. Their eggs are laid at the base of the plant. And when that larva hatches, it will feed on the roots of your plants. So you might have a problem with the flea beetles making little holes in your leaves, or you might have a problem with them feeding on the roots of your plants. But the adults do the most damage. However, if you just have a few, if you just see small infestations around it, it's not really a problem. Okay, it may damage your foliage somewhat, but as far as your plant, it should be okay. Um, if damage is beyond what you can tolerate, you can try some spinosad, some carbaryl pyrethrum, or pyrethrum, but make sure you use them as directed. I also read somewhere, Mike, that crop rotation and weed control can help curb this infestation from the very beginning. And so you might want to make sure you do that first and try to avoid any kind of infestation from these flea beetles.
Very good point. So, two things to watch for early on. Okay, is from an insect perspective, cutworms and flea beetles, and take care of those problems. So, Ellen, we've used up our time for today, so we have to leave. So, thank you everybody for listening, and hope to hear from you, or I hope you're listening to us next time. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You got it. Okay.
We got it.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.